Good evening, everyone. It is time for Lace. We will be starting in just a few minutes. We'll wait 2 more minutes to give our those that are in a different time zone time to get on. And we will be starting in about 2 minutes. So get ready. It is time for Lace. In the meantime, I will bring up the PowerPoint and so that we can be ready um, in the next 2 minutes. Okay, we are ready to get started. Just a few minutes. 2 more minutes. Okay, we're ready to get started. This is Lace, Love Applied, Can Endure. We're going through the series of Winning Battles with Love from my book. If you want a copy of the book, you can get it from Barnes & Noble, or you can get it from our website. We will not cover everything in the book, but you should get it and take advantage of the things that we don't cover. We will cover enough for you to be able to understand how to win battles with love, but there's a lot more in the book. So if you would want to get it, you can get it from Barnes and Nobles or my website. So therefore, let me make sure that you have that website. If you want to reach me, you can reach me by mail by Dr. C.V. White, LLC, 150 Post Office Road, Suite 1027 in Waldorf, Maryland, 20604. That is my address. Or you can email me at drcvwhite@gmail.com. And of course, my website that I was talking to you about is cvwhite.com. So if you want to get the book, you can get it from there, or you can get it from Barnes and Nobles. So we're talking about winning battles with love. And we're talking about having love as a primary part of our life, that everything we do has to be done in love. And we have not really understood the real meaning of love, because we, as we said, our secular definitions were never given to us when we were children. And the secular definition doesn't explain what love really is. So we generally think of love as what our parents have taught us, what we caught from listening to people talk about it, that they loved us, and the behaviors that went along with that. But we're talking about the unconditional love that God gives us, that He has for us, and that it is a love that never fails. So if you want to win, these are the things that you have to do practically to win. And so we're going to jump into that on tonight. We've been covering that for a couple of weeks. This will be our third week on after we're dealing with the practical characteristics of love. And let me get to the right slide here. And I think we may have 1 or 2 more weeks on this, and maybe only 3 more weeks in this whole series. It's before we have to start another series. But this is a wonderful, wonderful one, because it just it will bless your life so to operate in love all the time. It is wonderful to be able to do that. And so we are getting ready to start. Hi, Julia. We're getting ready to start now with this week's um, portion of the practical characteristics of love. And so let me start off by reading this slide here, and we can get started. We talked about 2 sessions ago, we started talking about these characteristics. And these characteristics are how we know that we are personally not loving people, or that we personally are. And so we found out that in some things we don't understand that we are loving people, and we are. And some things that we thought that we were loving people and we were not, because we didn't understand. So we're finishing up tonight, we're finishing up those characteristics, and then we're going to talk next week about some examples that I can share with you and close this practical characteristics part out, and then start with the another session on winning battles with love. So then let's get started here. Another thing that love will not do is act in an inappropriate manner. Appropriate behavior can usually be defined by social and cultural norms, but they are common in certain aspects. For instance, violence that is not self-defense against someone for personal gain, unwanted or unsolicited sexual advances, breathing down someone's neck when they're trying to work, leaving shopping carts in parking spaces rather than designated areas, yelling and screaming at people, acts of injustice, or things similar to that kind of behavior. These rules and regulations for any and everything, there are rules and regulations for any and everything in each society. There are rules you should follow when you visit someone's home. You cannot go into someone's house and set your own rules. You have no authority there, and that is inappropriate behavior. Not all the time, but most of the time, inappropriate behavior has to do with actions of breaking rules, anger, offense, or arrogance. So we're talking about inappropriate behavior. Love does not act in an inappropriate manner. And so when we're thinking about it not acting in an inappropriate manner, what does that mean? What is expected of that? There not all the time, but most of the time, when people are doing that, they're breaking rules. But let's just look at some other things. When people are disrespectful to situations, acts of injustice, get things that belong to other people without asking. And of course, we already talked about breaking rules, anger, offense, and offensive behavior, and arrogance. And so it's real important that we understand about not breaking rules and acting inappropriately. That's not love. And so when we do that, we're not going to win. We're not going to win, because love never fails and love always wins. So let's jump to the next one, because we're talking about the same thing here. Love will not participate in any of those kinds of actions, because the results of these kinds of action always results in something negative. And you cannot win with negative energy floating around. Rules are set in place for those who will break them for whatever reason. They are not for people who will honor rules. They do not need rules, because they act appropriately when without having a rule shown in their face. Have you ever noticed the key locks that are on that some companies use to put on file cabinets? They always amaze me, because the reason given for installing those locks was the protection from thieves and robbers and corporate spies. But if you know anything about those kind of folk, they have tools that can snap those locks off in a matter of seconds. So why lock The cabinet. Why put those little tiny locks on the cabinet? Because you have to buy the cabinets with locks on them. They were for nosy people that would get the information and act inappropriately with it. They will share personal and business secrets with people who are not authorized to have that information. So that means that that person that would do that, anybody that would do that, is not operating in love. I don't know if you've ever seen those file cabinets. We had lots of them when I was at work, and we still have some around that have the locks on, but it's just a little tiny lock, and a child can unlock it. You know, you can get a screwdriver and fool around with that lock for a few minutes, and you can just pop it right out of the file cabinet. And thieves and robbers know how to do that. That's not, you're not protecting that from them. They'll do that in a couple of seconds. You know, so why are you doing it? You're doing it because you have people around you that will break rules, and they will open it and read it, and they don't have authorization to do that, but they will do it. So, and like I said, the rules are for those who won't, you know, the locks are for those who will break rules, not for those that won't. You know, as I said before, you know, when I read that off of the PowerPoint there, you know, people who do not honor rules, just that's acting inappropriately. So when we think about not loving people, we don't think about the practical characteristics of that. We don't think about if we do something like that, we're not loving people. We're not acting in an example of love, or we're not experiencing love, or we're not showing love to somebody. You know, because leaving the shopping carts out in the middle of the parking lot, you know, that's not love. Uh, Parking in handicapped spaces when you know you're not handicapped, just so that it can be convenient. That's not love. You know, tasting food in stores without paying for it. That's acting inappropriately. And this is a big one. You know, I used to work with people who did this, and I never could understand how they could do it, but uh, I guess they couldn't understand how I could do some things either. But they would buy clothes for special occasions like weddings, christenings, parties, things like that, knowing they weren't going to keep the clothes. They would wear them for that occasion and then take them back with all of that deodorant on them, all the stains on them, and take them back to get their money back, and the store can't sell it to anybody else. That's inappropriate behavior, you know, and that's not love. When you do stuff like that, you're not going to win any battles. And not only are you not going to win any battles, you're not going to be happy with the consequences of that seed when it gets back to you. It's not going to be very comfortable for you when that crop comes back. But that is an example of not loving people, of not loving when you act inappropriate. It's more than just acting up and fussing and fighting and the things that we generally think of. It's more than that. And so that's why we take the time to go through practical things that help us understand uh, what's going on, and practical things that let us know, uh, you know, if we're doing this or if we're not doing this, you know. And like I said, many of these things we'll find that we are doing, so we are loving people. And some of these things we'll find out that we're not doing, and that we just need to work on that a little bit. We need to work on that a minute. And so we're gonna, so that's the one right there. You know, we're still talking about that. So we want to make sure that we understand that acting inappropriately is not loving people. Um, and it's it's not you that's doing it necessarily. You know, that's sometimes it's just the enemy that's doing stuff and using you to do it and using me to do it, and we don't even know it. So let's look at another one now. Let's look at another practical characteristic of love. How about having a hot temper? Love does not approve of hot temper. It does not approve of a hot temper characteristic. According to dictionary.com, I'm not going to read all these, but I'll read some of these, because when we say things like being rude, we talked about rude last week, and arrogance. We talked about that last week and week before last. I say, if you say rude, there's so many characteristics under that until you really don't understand that you're being rude until you look at all those characteristics and see if you find yourself in any of them. But I'm not going to read all of these, but I will read some of them so we can get an idea of what a hot temper characteristic is. It can be it can be described by dictionary.com as bad humored, uh, bearish, unreasonable, crabby, cross, annoying, disagreeable, got up on the wrong side of the bed, grouchy, grumpy, impatient, ill-humored, uh, irritable, like a bear, mean, unpleasant. How does love handle that? No hot-tempered person considers themselves practicing these uh, associated characteristics, and it's been my experiences about this, and this is why if you got a different experience, please share that, because we would like to hear that. If you say to a hot-tempered person in the middle of a temper blowout, stop being so grouchy, they will usually say, I'm not grouchy, in a grouchy way. That is because they don't see themselves as that grumpy, mean, impatient, or ornery person. There is not a time when one of the hot-tempered person's attitude will be able to win a battle. They won't be able to win, and especially if they're seeking a battle, if they're seeking peaceful solutions, favorable understandings, satisfactory agreements, or mutual settlements. And this is just not in our personal life with our family. This is in everything we do. If we're in different organizations, if we're in clubs, if we're in civic organizations, if we're in business, if we're in the government, whatever we're doing, then we can't let hot temperedness keep us from winning, because we have to have in every situation we have to have uh, win-win battles. People are usually seeking a peaceful solution if one can be found. So how can there be a win-win battle if your hot temper or my hot temper is all out of whack and it's all out there? We're not going to win. If we want a mutual settlement with people, whatever it is, we need to have an even temper. We need not have a hot temper. And it's very important that we understand that we're not supposed to do that. It is very important. We have lots of opportunity to do things and say things, but we don't want to do things and say things that would just keep us from winning, that would just keep us from winning what we uh, want to have and what we need to have, and love understands that completely and endeavors to position to win battles. To that end, love does not approve of hot-tempered characteristics and encourages us to calm down quickly. When you are engaged in these types of characteristics, the decisions you make are usually regrettable because you don't have time to think about what you should do or say, or you just react, and whatever comes to your mind, you do that. And during that process of not thinking, you select the activities that you think will solve the problem, deal with the situation. In other words, win the battle. But they're always harmful. More than not, they're more often harmful, and they will cause you to lose the battle. So we're talking about losing the battle here with hot-tempered people. They don't take time to think. And usually if you don't take time to think, you're going to have to come back and apologize. You don't get to ask wisdom what to do. You get to use wisdom so that you can win. We say that we and we have hot tempers, and just let the devil do something that causes us to snap off at people. Then we do a lot of things or say a lot of things we wish we hadn't said. and we wish we had never done. After we have a chance to cool off and think about it, oh man, I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't, you know, participated in that, or whatever it is that you're dealing with. Uh, you don't take the time to think. So we have to do that. We have to take the time to think, and we have to, you know, look at that situation um, quickly. Just stop doing it quickly. Don't become offended. Now, just becoming offended. You shouldn't do that either, because love doesn't do that. But hot tempered is really different, um, and everybody doesn't participate in hot tempers, but some people do. And if you know those people, and if you are those people, then you're not participating in love. And so that's one of the things that we don't really think about love when it comes to something like that. We're just dealing with the situation. We're just dealing with that. And, you know, usually what we say, I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to deal with this. And that's usually what people will say when they are trying to win in those situations. So let's take a look at another one here. Um, let's take a look at another one. All righty. Another characteristic is not rejoicing in evil. If you want to use the love strategy to win battles, you must not rejoice when wicked, unjust, and unrighteous things happen. Again, let's see what those are in dictionary.com. What are wicked and unjust and unrighteous things? Dictionary.com describes wicked as evil, morally bad in principle or practice, sinful, innuendos. All right. Yes. And I'm doing the Zoom. Okay, you can use the one last time. They're all the same. It's okay. My pleasure. So, another characteristic of love is not rejoicing in evil. So I was just giving those um, um, definition of wicked, and people who have wicked habits. And let me go over those again, because let make sure that I stopped at the right place here. That was one of our people that wanted to get on, and so I needed to give that information. All right, so I said morally bad in principle and practice, sinful, wicked people, wicked habits, and it comes from the word wick, which means a bundle of loose twisted of braids of soft threads, a woven strip of tube or cotton or asbestos with a candle, lamp, oil, or stove, serves to draw up melted tallow or wax in an oil or flammable liquid to be burned. And maybe you don't remember it. Those of you that are on right now, you may not remember this, but I remember kerosene lamps. And of course, if you have candles, they have a wick in them. And so you can really see what they look like. But the important thing to note here is that wicks are twisted. And when you take a close look at the characteristics, you can see that it involves twisted thinking. So we're looking at this particular one. It does not rejoice in evil. And we're talking about when wicked people do things, and you see people with wicked habits, and their morally bad principles and their practices, and they just have twisted thinking. not rejoicing in evil. You know, so we want to make sure that we don't rejoice in evil. We're not happy in evil. I don't know if it is a strange thing to me. And if any of you on here have some insight on this, please share. Just raise your hand and I'll let you share that. But it's amazing to me that people think evil stuff and wicked stuff is funny. And they don't think that it's evil at all. And it's not practicing love at all. You know, if anybody remember the Three Stooges, they just used to beat up on each other all the time. And everybody laughed and thought they were so funny and paid so much money to watch them beat up on each other. And you know what? In real life, they hated each other. And they said so. They didn't like each other. They weren't friends. How could you be a friend and you're beating up on each other all the time? You know? So it's really interesting that people think that when people have accidents or something, and when they fall, it's funny. It's not funny when somebody falls. They could get a concussion. Why do we laugh at that? Why do we think that's funny? It's because we don't understand love. And that's rejoicing in evil. So we don't even think about it. I mean, it just doesn't seem like it's that important. But that's what that is. That's rejoicing in evil. So we you know yeah, you know, they did that and they did that, they did the other, but we're gonna overlook that. No, that's rejoicing in evil. So we have to really do that, whether we're dealing with our personal life, and like I said before, whether we're dealing with clubs or whether we're dealing at a grocery store, or whether we're dealing with businesses or whether we're dealing with politics, whatever we're dealing with, you know, if we're dealing with charity organizations, whatever it is, you know, we're not supposed to rejoice in evil. But what this is a result of is twisted thinking. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So many times when people engage in these kinds of activities, they like to do them in the dark, so they will not be caught. But love knows that everything that is done in the dark will come to the light, and when it comes to the light, it's usually a painful experience. It causes trust issues with the person or people involved. And even though forgiveness is granted, there is a waiting and a proving time to regain trust. Therefore, love wants to save us the time and the energy and make sure that we do everything that's done in the light. Because love does not want us to rejoice when we witness or participate in unrighteousness, because love wants you and me to rejoice when things are right and when truth triumphs. And so that's really important for us to understand. We just need to rejoice in right and when truth triumphs, not when evil things are happening. That's not the time that we rejoice. When we're looking at those kind of things, and we're rejoicing in evil things. Let me see if I can come up with some examples here. Are you glad, or do you know people are glad, or have you ever seen in a situation where people are glad when they see people get their retribution, when recompense happens, when the punishment happens, when they've done something they shouldn't be doing to people, and then it comes back. I guess they're using some kind of Hindu word, I think now, to describe it. But and then they laugh about it when people are, you know, they call it revenge, or they'll be so glad to be able to tell people, "I told you so. You didn't listen, but I told you so." Now this person is in dire straits. They really need help. They really need you to love them through this thing that you told them, hey, don't do that because I've already done it and I know it's not going to work. and you know, they go ahead and do it anyway. They go ahead and do that anyway, and then it happens just the way you said. But instead of you saying, I told you so, which isn't love, that's not love. That's rejoicing in evil things. You know, the love is for you to go ahead and help them if you can, be compassionate with them if you can. So the next time you tell them, the next time you give them advice, they'll take it. They'll take it. But you know, when you get, you have to tell people, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. They're not going to listen to you the next time. So you're going to have to say, I told you so again. Why? Because rejoicing in evil doesn't win. It doesn't work. Love never fails. So if you love them through this process and you show them how to get out, even though you told them and you warned them and you begged and pleaded with them and they still did it anyway, and so now they need somebody to understand and somebody to love them because they're in a mess. And when you love them, you'll get their confidence and you'll get that opportunity to tell them the next time. And sometimes people rejoice when they see the negative harvest coming in. You know, we all understand seed time and harvest. And sometimes we'll tell people, don't plant no seeds like that. Don't plant those seeds. Don't plant those seeds. They'll plant them anyway. And when the negative harvest come in, we said, we're glad. I'm glad maybe you learned your lesson now. Maybe you learned, I'm glad. I hope that this will be the last time you do that. Well, see, that's not love. Love doesn't do that, you know. So we want to make sure that we understand that love does not do that, and that we are in a position to love people when they need it and know the difference between loving them and not loving them. And these are just some practical things. I mean, most of us know what we should do to love people, but practically, what does that look like? And so what we're talking about is what that looks like practically, the things that we do, you know. And we just talked about this next one coming up. We just talked about that a few minutes ago, but let's talk a few more minutes about it, because there is some more things that we need to really grasp in this whole idea of rejoicing when things are right and truth triumphs. So another characteristic of love is rejoicing when things are right, when truth triumphs. This one is not as difficult to remember, but it is seldom done. Many times we will hear something right and truthful that happens to someone. Unless it's a family member or a good friend, or sometimes not even them, we're non-responsive. We're complacent. We just ignore the good news of what we just heard, or we respond, and usually something like, that's nice. Oh, good for you. Well, those cliche answers that we give, we do that because that person is going through a time of rejoicing, and it is them, not us. So love operates the same way all the time. We should be rejoicing for that person with them. Now that the judgment of what is a celebration for one person may not be for other persons involved with the current victory. So by that means, it could be a court case. It could be a court case, and somebody has won. And so when you hear that they have won, okay, well, you won. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. But rejoice with them. Rejoice with them. On the other hand, it could be somebody that's trying to hurt or harm somebody, and the Lord provided a way for them not to be hurt or harmed. Rejoice with them. Rejoice with them. You know, not just with the family members and with people that you like and love, but your friends, your coworkers, your business, people in business. Uh, you know, when that good news comes and the opportunity comes, you have to rejoice with them if you're going to show love to them. You know, we can't be the person with the evil motives, because the ones with the evil motives, they do not rejoice. Um, they rejoice in evil. So we can't do that. So how do you rejoice? How do you rejoice when you really in your heart is happy when something good happens to someone, and that someone is not necessarily close to you? Oh, that is so nice. Do we thank the Lord? Lord, thank you for blessing them. Lord, thank you for giving that to them. Thank you for looking out for them. God, thank you for answering their prayers. Lord, thank you for giving them the desires of their heart. Uh, because we're one body. And when we do that, we express love. And when we express love, we position ourselves to win. So since love operates the same way all the time, no matter what you are doing, when we rejoice with people, it's an opportunity for us to win in what we're trying to get done. You know, so that celebration is not necessarily a physical celebration, but in your heart, you're celebrating with that person. You're celebrating with that person, and you're going through whatever you need to go through to let them know, uh, I'm glad for you. I'm glad for you. I really am glad for you. You know, it may mean a lot to a person to know that somebody else care about good things happening to them. A lot of times people don't have a lot of good things that happen to them. And so we don't celebrate that. We don't celebrate that. And so let me just explain it a little more before I go to the next one. Every time somebody do something wrong, we make sure that they know they did it wrong. We make sure. Even when we're children, depending on our parents, depending on how they handle things, they will always correct us. Sometimes we even get punished for doing stuff wrong. But how about when we do things right? When we do things right, do we celebrate people? Do we tell them we're glad for them? Do we do that? No, we don't. We generally don't do that. You know, and you say, well, if they get married or something like that, I celebrate with them. Yeah, but that's not necessarily what I'm talking about, but it does fall in that category. But people have so many daily activities that go on that are victories that we should be celebrating. Tell people when they have done well. You did a good job. That was good. You loved somebody the way you were supposed to. That was good. I'm glad to see you successful. You worked really hard to get your certificate. You worked really hard to get that job. You worked really hard to work with that nonprofit. I'm really happy to see you do that. That is so wonderful. And mean it. Because, when we say stuff like that to people, when we say, oh, well, yeah, that's nice, it's just a cliche if it's not in your heart. And so that is a practical characteristic of loving people the way they should be loved. That is a practical characteristic of it, you know. And so we want to make sure that we understand that. We understand that these things that are happening daily in our lives are all connected with love. And so all we have to do is use that so that we can win. We can win because it never fails. Okay, so let's go to the next one. The next one is not insisting on your own right in your own way. Boy, this is a hard one. This next characteristic of love is more difficult because it requires us not to insist on our own rights or our own way. For love is not self-seeking. It is not touchy or fretful or resentful. It takes no account of evil done to it, nor does love pay any attention to a suffered wrong. This one is a series of actions that work together for the final result. This is the most difficult one that I think we have. There's one next to it. The one after this is next to it. But this is, I think, is the most difficult one, because when people do us wrong, we just want it fixed. We want them to stop doing it. We don't think that they should have done it. We don't like to be disrespected. We don't like to be dishonored. We don't like folks to lie on us. We don't like folks to pretend like we didn't help them. We don't like for people to be unappreciative, because we want insist on our own rights in our own way. And all of that is self-seeking. All of that is self-seeking. And so because it is self-seeking, it makes us touchy, it makes us fretful, it makes us resentful, and it makes us take account of the evil that was just done to us. They just shouldn't have done it, and they didn't even tell the truth about it. And if they did tell the truth, they didn't have to say it that way. They could have said it another way, or they could have done it another way, or they could have waited till next week, or they could have, or should have, could have, whatever. This one, there's a whole series of these. Okay? You have to not insist on your own rights in your own way. You have to not be self-seeking. You have to not be touchy, fretful, and resentful. And finally, you have to take no account of the evil that was done to you, and pay no attention to a suffered wrong, because you're going to suffer through it. You're going to suffer through it. But love does that. It suffers through it and pays no attention to it. Okay, so that's a little cliche there, but you can remember, love suffers through it, but pays no attention to the wrong done. Love suffers through it, but pays no attention to the wrong done. So this one, most people do not pay attention, because it's almost everyone set themselves and what they want above everyone else. And if you try to talk to them, they say, yeah, but she did this. Yeah, but he did that. Yeah, but. And the yeah, but is, I'm self-seeking. I want this working out for me. I'm not thinking about the other person at all. I'm not thinking about the fact that God's got my back. I'm not thinking about that I'm obeying the word of God and I'm loving people, and this and I'm going to win in this situation. If I love this person, I'm going to win in this situation, even though they're against me. If I love this person, there's not going to be a problem for me in the end of this, because I win. But if I don't love this person, if I complain, or I'm bitter, or I want retribution, or I want them to stop, no, you're not going to win that one. You're not going to win that one. So that is what we're talking about, the practical things that we do that keeps us from winning. And these are practical characteristics of love. Now, we know these characteristics because we have studied them for years, those of us that do study the Word of God, but how does that apply? So we're talking about that apply. So hardly, like I said, hardly anyone can say that they're not sometimes touchy, they're not sometimes fretful or resentful. And these seem to be the things that come up when we experience wrong that has been done for us, done to us. And we experience wrong that's been done to us. We are touchy, we're fretful, and we just want it to stop. We just want it to quit. We just want it to stop. So this one right here, love does not insist on its own right. You don't insist on your own rights and your own way. People who are victims of a wrong done to them are often selfish. And that's what we're talking about here. We're thinking about ourselves. And you say, well, why shouldn't we think about ourselves? We can't let people just run over us. No, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about you sitting there letting somebody run over you. We're talking about you not putting yourself ahead of that situation. I was, I don't know if I shared this last week, Maybe I was sharing it in another setting, but I'm not sure. But when I was working on my doctorate degree, I have so many stories. So if I told you all this story before, that's fine. You know, you're getting ready to hear it again. You're getting ready to hear this again. Um, I When I was working on my doctorate degree, I think I told somebody this story this week, so it may not have been you. Uh, I had been working on it for about 5 years, you know, and I had finished my two master's degrees, and I deliberately on purpose took some of the classes that I needed to take in for my doctorate degree. And so I wanted to when I got ready, I wanted to finish it a year early because I've been going to school for 5 years. And if I went 2 more years, that would have been 7 years. So I wanted to finish early. So I took some extra classes so that I could finish a year early. And when I had completed the requirements in the catalog, you know, at the graduate school, and when I was talking to my counselor, I was getting all kind of flags and all kind of negative stuff. They wouldn't tell me what was wrong, you know, in terms of, well, you're not going to do this, you can't do this. And every time I tried to get something done that I needed to done, there was a negative reason. There was a reason I couldn't get stuff done. So I was praying. I was praying, and I started praying. I said, God, what's wrong? I said, I can't figure out why they're so against everything I come up with. And they won't tell me what I need to do. All I'm trying to do is finish the work. And I had to I was working on um, I had finished all of my um, master's work, and I was working on my doctoral. You know, I had finished all the thesis and finished those classes and has graduated. So I said, well, it can't be any of those because I've already graduated, and I'm just all I have to do is work on, you know, the doctorate paper. And so what's the problem? And the Lord said to me, they don't want you to finish in 1 year. They want you to take to hold 2 years. I said, oh boy, you know, I didn't want to do that, but they didn't want to tell me because they couldn't, because they didn't have any more requirements for me to take, you know. And so said they didn't have anything they could add to the list to force me another 2 years. So they were just making my life miserable so that I would just not be able to finish. So I said, okay, I made up my mind. I was going to go ahead and take the 2 years. If you want these 2 years, I'm going to give you these 2 years. I wanted to finish a year early, but I'm going to finish. But I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish, and I'm going to finish well, and I'm going to go ahead and take as much time as you want me to take to write this doctoral paper, you know. And so they once they found out that I was going to do the 2 years, and life just changed. Everything changed. Oh, they were so happy. They were so happy. But for whatever reason, they wanted me to do the 2 years. I still don't know. But I was able to graduate, and I graduated at the top of my class. But until then, until I allowed them to do what they want to do, I stopped. I didn't put myself seeking stuff first. I did not put myself, I said, okay, this is what you want. This is what you want. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give you the extra year. So I did finish in 7 years instead of 6 like I wanted to. And so that's what I mean about not putting yourself first. You know, I'm not talking about letting people beat you up and letting people hurt you and just standing there and let somebody kill you. I'm not talking about that. I am talking about not seeking your own way over and above other people when you have the power and the authority to let them, let that go, then love can win. So when I let it go, not only did I win, I had the best doctoral paper. I was the top of my class. Everything that I could possibly get, every honor that I could possibly get, I got it. And that was because I let love win. I could have insisted. I could have insisted. I could have gone to the president. I could have gone to the owner. I could have gone to a whole lot of people to force them to let me finish in the 1 year because they had no logical reason for me not to, except they didn't want me to do it. And so that is a very good example of what I'm talking about here. That's a very good example. So, that is not insisting on your own rights. Remember, there's a series, there's a series of things that you are going to be doing, and taking no account of evil that was done to us. Take no account of the wrong that was done to you. Okay, so let's go to the next one. That is, keep no records of the wrong that was done to you. All right, we talked about taking no account of it. Now we're talking about keeping no record of it. Okay. Oh, Sharon, you finally you got on. Are you able to read this last one? This is the last one. If you're not, that's fine. Okay, she's not. She must be doing something else. Let me read this. Another characteristic of love is not to keep an account of a wrong done to you. We more often than not make people pay for what they did or get revenge, and we do not take an account of the evil that was done for us. We do take account of the evil that was done to us. We certainly pay close attention to all suffered wrongs that we have to put up with. And we go to a negative place when people do us wrong, and we will not win battles in negative places. Our common reply is saying some kind of rebuttal in our defense or singing a "somebody done me wrong" song. So keeping no records of what a wrong done to you means that you have to forgive a person and treat them as if they had never done it. That's hard, to treat them as if they had never done it. You treat them as if they had never done it. Okay? So that's hard because this is the second hard one. The one we had before was the first hard one. That's hard because it's in your memory bank. It's in your memory bank. It hurt you really bad. And so now you're having to deal with the memory of that. They never apologized. They really caused some really harmful things to happen to you. And so that it's very difficult to do. And so I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to give you some examples of this, and then I'm going to go out to you and ask you to share some insight and wisdom if you have some. The example I can think of most is the word of God that says, "Honor thy father and thy mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee." It says, honor your father and your mother. It doesn't say if your mother and father were kind to you. It doesn't say if you were the results of a rape. It doesn't say that you ever knew your mother and father. It doesn't say that, if they abandoned you or not. It doesn't give any characteristics of reasons why you should not honor them. And so therefore, keeping a record of what they did or did not do, or you had or did not do, that was a wrong done to you. So keeping a record of a wrong done to you in practicality, can be a myriad of things, a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, and that have nothing to do with you. But it's just that you kept that record of that wrong that was done. It does not necessarily have to do with somebody sexually or physically abusing you, and you have personally experienced something physical from somebody. uh they it does not necessarily have to do with somebody lying on you or stabbing you in the back or stealing something from you. It it could have something to do with what I just said, just things that happen in a way that you have just kept a record of this wrong that was done, that somebody didn't do what they were supposed to do. If it was your parents, some other relatives, or somebody on the job, or, and if you experience any kind of prejudice, whether that be racial prejudice, whether that be um, prejudice because you're not wealthy, or you don't live in certain neighborhoods, or whatever kind of prejudice you experience, that is a wrong done to you. But you can't keep a record of that. You have to forgive that person, and you have to pretend like it was never done to you if you're going to win. And that's the only way to do that. Keep no record of your wrongs done to you, because it's difficult to do, because you have that in your memory bank. But we have to protect ourselves uh, from people, just in case they want to do it again. So I'm going to keep them. I'm going to remember you, and I'm going to make sure that I don't ever give you another opportunity to do that to me. And so that is keeping a record of a wrong done to you. So forgiveness means that you have to forget that it was ever done to you, and make yourself vulnerable for them to do it again, because you kept no record of the time they did it before. You make yourself vulnerable now, and I'm not talking about physical harm, but you can make yourself vulnerable. So if your parents did something and you forgive them and you forget about it, then you have to make yourself vulnerable, so they may do it again. They may say something again to hurt your feelings, or they may say something to your children, but they may not. Because you have loved them, then you have positioned yourself to win. Okay, so we're out of time. Let me shut that down and ask you, Inez. I guess you or Shantice. Shantice, are you still on here, or are you not? Inez, did you learn anything that
Yes.
could help?
Well, yes. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay. I was kind of late getting on, so I missed some of it. But what I learned and what occurred to me since the Bible study is how you deep dig deep into what it means for things, certain words, how we act, behave, all of that. Well, I was thinking about what you talked about today. To me, the word that occurred to me was intentional. When we don't hold grudges, or if we hold grudges, we do things. Those are intentional things. So we have to work on when we go about our life every day, is to be intentional on how we accept people, how we forgive people, how we walk in front of people, or not walk in front of them like actually walking, but our life. So that's what occurred to me. Intentional. I don't know why that just occurred to me when you was talking about that, being intentional about, because we can be intentional and just laugh at people when they get hurt, or we can just hold grudges intentionally. And I do know that happens. Um, so my only incident, and I think I've said this incident before, and I don't know why this occurred to me way back then, and I was a grown-up woman. And I went back on the visit, and my mom, we were just talking, all of a sudden it came out of my mouth like, you used to leave us by ourselves. And my mom just burst out and went to crying. And I said, with all the tea in China, I'm not going to say nothing else to her like that again. So ask the Lord to forgive me and her too. And, you know, and I just felt, she said, well, because I didn't have no way to take you all the time. I wasn't driving, Pops didn't drive. So I understood that, but why that bothered me all those years. Oh, it would come up, go away, come up, and it just blurted out. And those are not the only things. How they treated us in Jim Crow. My pastor told me, you just have to forgive the people that work for Kroger's, and that was the law back then. A lot of those people didn't know any better. So I prayed about that, and I can go in the store, and I think I've said this before, and I can look at something from Kroger's and not get disturbed. So because I have to be intentional about that, just really work with letting that go, because that was a past thing. And the things that happen to me now, you know, just being intentional about letting it go. Sorry I talked so long, but that was what occurred.
Oh, that was good. That's what we're looking for. You know, just practically, how do we love people? You know, how do we do it? And in areas where we think we're loving somebody and we're not, and we think
Okay.
we're not loving people and we are. You know, so we're going through that process to see how that's working. And so that's fine. That's fine. If you had any other comments on that, was
For
that it?
me? Yes, that's it.
Okay, Shantice, are you there? Shantice, are you there? Okay, I think she's not able to say something. She's probably able to hear but not speak. Okay, well, that is it for tonight. Tomorrow, the next week, we will still be working on this part, but I think we covered all the, maybe we have one more. We've covered all the different things, but we have to finish up this practical part next week. And I think we have, Inez, I think we have maybe 3 or 4 more sessions under Winning Battles with Love before we shift to another subject. So next week, next 2 or 3 weeks, we might, well, maybe more than 2, maybe in the next 3 or 4 weeks, we may finish this series and we're going to start another one. Okay. Well, give everybody my love and have a good evening.
Good
Oh,
evening, everybody.
yeah.
Take care.
Yeah, let me pray. Yeah, let me pray. Father, in Jesus' name, I just thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for helping us understand the practical ways to love people. I thank you, God, for helping us understand what we're doing and what we're not doing, and how we're moving and breathing and having our being in you. You blessed us, Lord, in so many wonderful ways. So we just thank you and we praise you, God. And we ask you to bless everything we put our hands to and help us clean our hearts and get these things out of our hearts that we don't even know that's in there, so that we can move to the next level. And so we thank you for those that watch later, if they watch it on social media, on Facebook or on Twitter or X or whatever it is now, Instagram, any of those, God. We ask you to bless them and help them understand how to love in a practical way and apply love in every area of their life, so that they can be successful and win every battle. And we thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. Good night, Inez.
Good night.
Good night, Sean, if you're there.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.